If you're interested in a movie about a group of criminals that kidnaps a little 12-year-old ballerina girl, who also just so happens to turn out to be a murderous vampire, well, you're in luck. Let's talk about Abigail. What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and as I do with all my movie reviews, I'm gonna give you a little bit of information about Abigail, who made it, what it's about, all that good stuff. Then we'll go into the things I did and did not like about the movie, the pros and cons. And finally, I'll let you know who I think Abigail is for, if anyone. If that kind of thing sounds cool to you and you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies that are coming out, make sure you subscribe. In Abigail, after a group of criminals kidnap the ballerina daughter of a powerful underworld figure, they retreat to an isolated mansion, unaware that they're locked inside with no normal girl. Abigail is a horror comedy written and directed by the team that wrote and directed the most recent 2 Scream movies, I believe. It's in theaters this weekend and is rated R for a ton of blood and gory violence, as well as some language and a little bit of drug use. The movie runs about an hour and 50 minutes, 50, which is a decent length for a movie like this. I would have probably shaved off 10 or 15 minutes, but not bad. It stars Melissa Barrera, who of course was in the most recent Scream movies as well. There's Dan Stevens, who's having a massive year. He was just in Godzilla x Kong. Kathryn Newton's in this one as well. Will Catlett, Kevin Durand, who is amazing in this role, Angus Cloud in his final performance, Giancarlo Esposito, and Alisha Weir, who is the little girl that plays Abigail. So before we get into the pros and cons, let me let you know my expectations going into the movie, so that way you kind of have an idea as to where I'm coming from. So for me, I am a huge fan of horror comedies. It's one of my favorite genres. So I was definitely looking forward to this. It's kind of right up my alley. But at the same time, I recognize that it probably wasn't going to be some Oscar award-winning, crazy, well-put-together movie. I was just looking to have a fun time with a big, dumb movie about a vampire who's also a ballerina. And who doesn't love seeing a movie about a kid kicking the crap out of a bunch of criminals? Speaking of which, when are we going to get a 3 Ninjas remake? All right, so now you kind of know where I'm coming from. Let me give you some of the pros, the things that I really liked about this movie. For one, the characters. Every single character I thought was pretty well done. They're all, of course, caricatures. They're all jokes. They're all these make-believe characters that are two-dimensional. But at the same time, they're all just really fun and really well acted and played out. Every single person is a complete idiot, except for maybe Melissa Barrera's character. But you love them because they're so dumb. That's what makes them so compelling and makes you have such a good time hanging out with them. I also really like the way that they all connect with one another, whether it's Angus Cloud's character just constantly hitting on Kathryn Newton's character in the most pathetic ways possible, or if it's Dan Stevens and Melissa Barrera's characters kind of fighting over control of the group, as well as some other mixes of the characters. I think it all went together pretty well. They all kind of played off of each other well. Honestly, some solid writing, despite the fact that this is, kind of a joke of a movie. They really do a good job of managing all the characters and making sure that they all work together and make sense together. Also, I have to say, Alisha Weir, the kid that plays the vampire girl, Abigail, she is phenomenal. I don't think I've seen her in anything else, although she has a few credits to her name, but I think she did a great job playing kind of both sides of her character. For parts of the movie, she's this scared little girl who's being kidnapped. And then of course, for other parts of the movies, she's this bloodthirsty vampire who basically likes to play with her food. And so she gets to, really stretch her acting muscles. And I think she did a really great job, not to mention all of the physical stuff she had to do. As you can imagine, she's a ballerina. So there's a lot of intricate motion that she has to go through. There's a lot of probably wire work and stunt work that she had to do here. And I think for somebody who was, 12, maybe 13 at the type of filming, I think she did a pretty phenomenal job. So definitely somebody to look out for. And of course, creepy kids are always going to freak me out, but you could tell she really had a lot of fun with this role. I also really dug the kind of creativity of the kills and the traps and all the different things in the mansion that they're in. It's a very confined movie. It all pretty much takes place in this one house, this one mansion. And it reminded me a little bit of Clue, if you remember that movie, that classic kind of comedy thriller from back in the day. I really got a lot of vibes from that. I wonder if that was an inspiration for the writers or for the director. But they really do a lot where the mansion itself kind of becomes its own character. And it's a big part of the enjoyment that I got out of the movie. Overall, I just had a really good time. It's a ton of fun. It's really enjoyable to see these terrible people get kind of like built up and then just destroyed in the most entertaining ways. But at the same time, no movie is perfect. So let's go ahead and get into some of the cons that I had with it. But before we do, I want to let you know real quick that this video is sponsored by you. That's right. I'm just a small channel here without any big corporate sponsors or anything like that. So just by watching the video, you're really helping me out. If you want to be super dope and show your support in the easiest possible way, do me a solid and like the video and maybe drop a comment down below. Let me know, what are some of your favorite horror comedies of all time? I think off the top of my head, I'm gonna go with Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That one is an absolute classic. You can also now join as a channel member if you want to help support me financially, or just subscribe for free if you want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out. So either way, whatever you do, I appreciate it. All right, on to the cons. And the biggest con for this whole movie is that we already know what it's about. And that is to say that we already know that the little girl, Abigail, is a vampire. And I feel like if I didn't know that going into this movie, it would have been so much more enjoyable and impactful. As it is, it kind of plays as this comedy, right? This horror comedy with these really brutal kills and everything. But it would have been even more interesting if they had blended in that kind of level of suspense and uncertainty, where you just see people getting killed or you just see dead bodies start to pile up and you don't know what's going on. I feel like that would have made it way more of an interesting and compelling movie. But of course, I get it. You know, they have to sell tickets, so they have to hit you with the premise that, oh, here's a movie about a girl that's murdering all these bad guys. Otherwise, why would you go watch just a random movie about a kidnapping? So I understand why they had to do that with the marketing, but for me personally, I would have much preferred if I didn't know that going into it. So if you have the opportunity to show this to someone who has no idea what it's about, do not spoil it for them. Just let them find that out on their own. I want to know how they think about it at that point. Does it become a completely different movie? I don't know. Aside from that, you know, there's a few other things that were kind of like nitpicks with the movie. One thing that they do here, which is such a trope in a lot of horror movies, is the jump scare, right? Jump scares are everywhere. And jump scares are fine for me. My problem with jump scares is when they don't actually have any weight to them. So they'll do a jump scare and it's, you know, a rat running across the floor and you're like, oh God, what is that? Oh, it's just a rat. Or they'll do another one and it's like somebody, you know, grabbing you on the shoulder that just is just a person that you know, but it's not like the killer or anything like that. So it's these kind of empty, weightless jump scares that don't really mean anything, and they're just doing it because they feel that they have to accelerate your heart every certain amount of minutes in order to make it count as a thriller or a horror movie. So that to me is a little lazy, and so I didn't really appreciate that throughout the movie. And otherwise, when there were genuinely horrific moments that were coming up, you totally saw them coming from a mile away 9 times out of 10. So you're getting these jump scares, these sudden jolts of fear that are nothing. And then you're getting real horror and horrific stuff, but you just see it coming. So you're just like, oh, yep. And you can feel the music start to build or the silence, and you know exactly what's going to come. And then boom, there it is. So it kind of eliminates a lot of the thrill from it. Aside from that, they try to incorporate a few things towards the end of the movie, which I won't spoil, obviously. But the way that it kind of wraps up, I feel like they jumped the shark a little bit with some of the plot development. And also the ending is, you know, pretty typical in a lot of ways. So there's not, you know, not to say that there's not anything to enjoy. I still enjoyed the way that it ended, but it was pretty standard, pretty paint by numbers. So, okay, who do I think Abigail is for? Well, this is going to be super easy because the movie knows exactly what it is. It sets out with a very specific purpose, and it's marketed and advertised to a very specific audience. So if you are the kind of person that when I tell you that this is a movie about a ballerina vampire killing bad guys, if that sounds like something you want to see, then you are going to love this movie. But if I tell you that and your reaction is, oh, that sounds dumb, well, then this isn't for you. This is a super black and white situation where if you're into that kind of ultra violent comedy silliness, go for it. But if you're not, then, you know, watch something else. Either way, if Abigail sounds interesting to you, you can check it out in theaters this weekend. If you've seen it already, let me know what you think in the comments below. Did I miss anything? And of course, if you just want to keep up to speed on all the new big movies coming out, make sure you subscribe. All right, my dude. I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.